Let's go. Good morning, evening, afternoon, night, whatever time you're watching this. This is your ethics training. For those of you who don't know me, that's me, Gary M. Kluka. I am the administrative law attorney and ethics advisor for Fort Wainwright. The reason that is the most important slide in the deck is because if you get into trouble, the thing you want to do is not turn off the. If you have a question, you can contact an ethics advisor before you do something. Before we do something, we are the garrison's attorney, and we work for the garrison commander, just like you do. And as long as you're working for the garrison commander, we can give you advice. Once you've done something which puts you on the wrong side of the ethics rules, then you're going to have to find your own attorney because we will be representing our client, the garrison commander. So now, if on the other hand you come to us, ask us a question, and you get from us a legal opine, an ethics opine, administrative law will not then be able to be taken, administrative action will not be able to be taken against you because you will have consulted an ethics counselor. And that's really what we want to have happen. When you have a question, come to see us. Why are we doing it? Well, as the slide indicates, we're trying to do our best to keep public interest in mind, uphold the public confidence, but the real true reason is, the reason you're getting these ethics rules is because there is a publication put out by the Government Ethics Office every year called The Encyclopedia of Ethical Failure. This is a volume which provides for us all of the ethical failures that have occurred from the 4-star level down to the lowest rank I've seen is a specialist. I have not seen a PFC yet manage to break into the book. I'm sure that'll happen one of these days. But every time somebody else screws up, what does that mean? We've got to teach a course. Now, for those of you who are interested in holistic medicine and don't like to take things like Ambien or other sleeping aids, the Key Laws and Regulations is a really good start if you want to find something else. Yes, they are long, they are dull, they are boring, they make people's eyes just pop out of their heads when they have to do this. Me, I love this stuff. This is the thing that I use all the time to create those ethics opinions that we were talking about earlier. Now, this is the Code of Ethics for the executive branch. Now, the thing about this code is it started with originally during the first President Bush's administration, because we in the Department of Defense had different rules for different services. And a decision was made by then Secretary Rumsfeld to have one code. And the President issued this. This was originally for the Code of Ethics for the DOD. And the next man in, President Clinton, thought it was such a good idea. He expanded it to everybody. They've changed some of the wording. But basically, this is a very well-founded document. Now, if you look at it, and you put a little airborne arc over the top of this, it kind of looks like the Ten Commandments, doesn't it? Well, of course, the federal government, being what it is, had to do its thing, and we had to add at least 4 more things to it. So I'm going to do something which was done in the Bible. I'm going to take all of these rules and turn them into simply 2 rules. The first is the do rule. These are all the things which you need to do. Basically, if you live right, if you're doing the right thing, you're not going to have any problem. If you're treating everyone else the way you would want to be treated, then you're going to have a pretty easy time with the rules of ethics. You know, complying with full faith, that's the full good faith and obligations as a citizen. You know, that includes the state, county, whatever that you're in. And as long as you're being a good citizen, you're not going to have any problems. Of course, the second rule is the opposite one, the do not rule. Don't use information that you may get for your own benefit. Obviously, that's pretty simple. Do all the things that you're supposed to do. Do your job. Do be careful of using commitments to the outside. So, for example, if you have contractors working for you, you have to be very careful. We have had many opportunities in the past, especially in DPW, where people will be kind of fooled. The contractor may come up and say, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think we should do this or do you think we should do that? And suddenly you find yourself having made a commitment that wasn't supposed to have been made. So that's one of those things you got to watch out for. And again, the biggest one here is if it looks bad, it probably is bad. And at very worst, there's going to be an investigation to determine how bad it may have been. We'll talk about some of these things as we're going along. Now, these are the ethical principles when we're talking about the use of electronic communications devices. All right. First and most obvious thing is we give you information processing equipment, communications equipment, and all sorts of other equipment. If you are using it to do your job, that's an official use. So as long as you're doing your job, so for example, we have a camera here. Now, this is an official use. If instead we were just fooling around and taking pictures of other things and doing it for our own personal, or for example, took it home to use to take pictures of the children's party, that would not be an official use. That would be an abuse. Authorized use, it's kind of like the regular one, but what we're talking about is if it follows in those 6 areas, and if you can say, okay, looking at those 6, we haven't got a problem here, well, then you can use it. Brief phone call using your government cell phone while you're TDY to tell your spouse that you're going to be late. Not a problem. To use it for the purposes of, for example, whatever today's date is, wow, it's Mom's birthday. I forgot about Mom's birthday. And moms, of course, are the most important people in all the world. So, could I use my communication system, either the internet or the telephone, to call up and order flowers for Mom? Well, as long as it's not going to be a long duration, you're not going to be sitting on the phone waiting for several hours to get those phones ordered. It's not something that happens more than once a year. I mean, something not frequent event. Then, and it doesn't overburden the system. It's not going to make us look bad. You're okay, as long as your supervisor approves. Now, email and internet works the same way. Official use, obviously. Authorized use, okay. You may have to make a quick email off, or maybe you're getting something from a visiting relative. Yeah, that's not a problem. It's when you start spending several hours a day, trying to go shopping, getting Mom's flowers and getting off during your break time, that's one thing. But spending 6 to 8 hours, as there were some young ladies who did in our office in Kuwait, yeah, that got them a good talking to. That was not something that they should have been doing. So as long as it doesn't interfere with your other duties, that's not a problem. Obviously, we have things that are absolute no's. Pornography. Now, I don't understand how people can get to watch pornography on their internet. I mean, I had enough trouble when I was trying to look up Secretary McHugh's policy on homosexuals and their rights in the Army. And I had the NEC sending out this sign to me saying, "You're evil! Why are you looking at this?" I've noticed ever since then, though, that it's always referred to as a same-sex policy now. I think there must be some kind of catchphrase some word device over there that picks up certain words. Same sex is okay, homosexual is not. I don't know, but that's happened to me. Statutory copyright infringements. Basically, we're talking when you have an MP3 player and you're putting your MP3s on the computer, especially in an area where everybody else can get to it, and they are. That's a copyright infringement, and that's a violation of law, which means, of course, it's not within the rules of ethics. I don't even know if many people will even remember bulletin boards. Does anybody remember electronic bulletin boards? Back in the late 80s, we used to have these things. It's been taken over by Craigslist and eBay and all these other social media sites. So we don't have a lot of that anymore, so we really don't have to worry about that very much. Chain letters, obviously, we have to know that no matter how cute the disease is, making this little girl or little boy, and they always get cuter as they're getting closer to death, Bill Gates is not going to pay you even this teeny tiniest fraction of a penny for every email you send using Outlook. Not going to happen. That can cause a lot of trouble when people get larger lists. In fact, when I was with Third Army, somebody got a hold of the magic list, listing every single person in all of our assigned areas, in Baghdad, in Kuwait, in Qatar, in Djibouti, as well as the main headquarters back in Atlanta. Do you know what the only thing worse than having a chain letter? Having somebody who goes, reply all, take me off your stupid list. Well, in some cases, those people were, because when this whole thing was reported to the people in the what is now the NEC, it was I forget what it was back then, but yeah, they did have their rights removed for a while. And classified documents are probably not something that almost anybody in the garrison is going to see, unless there's a mistake. And sometimes that can happen. If you do happen to see something marked secret on top and bottom, or top secret on top and bottom, even confidential, FOUO, yeah, find out who that is and make sure that gets reported. Because if you don't, that's going to cause more problems than you can ever hope to have. We had that happen in the JAG office. We wiped out 2 clerks, 2 computers, and our printer, copying machine, which was also our scanner. Those things can keep up to 10,000 pages of information. So they really have to be cleaned before they get taken out. And unfortunately, they accidentally put classified information in from a claim. Shouldn't have been there in the first place, but since it did, we got burnt. Okay, other equipment goes the same way. If you've got a copying machine, like our copying machine that we had taken away from us for a while, you need to make sure that you're not using it for the wrong reasons. Now, it's probably not going to be a problem. Remember the other rule we talked about? You know, if it's something that's not going to be a problem, your boss wouldn't mind. You know, you're not making copies of pornography. You're just taking your child's school record, the report card come in, and you want to see them. Let grandma and grandpa see that card. Probably not a problem, especially if you just send it as a PDF file. But it is a problem if you're using, as we had in Atlanta, a gentleman who was using about half a ream of paper every couple of weeks. When they finally stopped and asked him, well, what the heck are you doing? Well, my brother-in-law's got a restaurant, and he has to change his menu all the time because things change, and you know, it's expensive to go out to. Yes, all right, there's a time and place for everything. The time and place for that is at Kinko's. Okay, official time, obviously giving an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, that's kind of important. The other thing for this area too is if you have contractors who are working for you, remember that their time is not governed by our time. We don't govern their time. Their contract and their employer does. So, for example, if you have contractors working with you and it's org day and you're going to go out, you can't tell the contractor that their place of duty is now going to be at Pioneer Park. That would be improper. Now, if his boss tells him that's the case, well, that's fine. On the other hand, you also can't do the situation where it's org day, the contractor staying back in the office to do work, and say, oh, by the way, could you answer the phones? That creates an unauthorized commitment. Remember, we talked about that above. That's where one of these things can happen. Using personnel. Obviously, we have subordinates to work for us and to do the job which they are assigned to do. On the other hand, you don't want to be like the sergeant first class that was in the brigade who had his own private auto start. Well, let me rephrase that. He was using a private as his auto start. Yes, he would take the private. Here's my car keys. Go out, start my car, get it nice and toasty warm for me. Yeah, that would be a bad thing to do. Using your subordinates to do your personal gear to use for your personal business, not a good thing. This one we throw in, I don't know how many people who are watching this are going to have government travel cards, but the most important part here is, of course, that you can only use your travel card for travel-related expenses while you're performing official travel. So if you're down in Anchorage for the weekend visiting with friends, know that just because you're traveling doesn't mean you get to use your official travel card. Only when you're on official orders. So if you're down there because of of something else, that would be okay. Back again, looking at gifts. Now, everybody loves gifts, and this is an area where commanders sometimes want me to have one of my hands cut off. Because what I'm going to tell you is one thing, and then I'm going to go turn around and I'm going to tell you something else. So what is a gift? Almost anything can be a gift. Almost everything would be a gift. As long as it's a tangible item or a service that has a value, it's a gift. Except that these things aren't. If you go TDY, or if you're having training in here and somebody comes in and they say, we brought the coffee and the donuts. Well, that's not a gift. If you get a greeting card from someone, we don't figure you're going to sell your soul for a card, even if it's a nice $2 card. Now, some of these just don't make any sense at all, because anything a prize is offered in a public forum obviously has nothing to do with whether or not you work for the government. It's a public thing. Same thing with discounts. What do you get when you go to McDonald's other than fries? Okay, 2 pounds of fat is another idea, but that's not the right one. No, you'll get a 10% discount if you've got your military ID. They will give. Is that a gift? Well, the answer is no. It's not really a gift. What it is part of their advertising scheme. It comes out of their advertising budget. So that's all that is. It's really not something meant to be given to you. Even these larger ones for cars, all the car companies around here are offering thousands of dollars back because you belong to the military. What they're actually saying is, you will buy a car from me, I'll give you a couple $1,000s. It makes it sound so much better, though, if they say it's because you're in the military. Okay, this is a simple rule. Nobody solicits and accepts directly or indirectly gifts from a prohibited source or because of your official position. Real simple. Of course, then we turn around and talk to you about these things. Now, what's a prohibited source? Prohibited source meets any of these 4 categories. They're doing business, or they want to do business, or they're people who we regulate, or they have a substantial interest. For example, the borough. I don't know of any contracts that the borough has with the Department of Defense. But when the F-16s were leaving Eielson, when the F-35s were coming to Eielson, was the borough interested? Oh yeah, that had a substantial effect. So they would be a prohibited source. Now, the government position thing, a lot of people are thinking, well, this only applies to the colonel or maybe the commanders or things like that. No, let's take a step back here. What kind of people are prohibited sources who might offer you a gift because of what you do? And I'm especially addressing those of you who are in the child care area. Wait. You said getting a gift card was okay. No, getting a card for this period now from the time from the 31st of October to the 2nd of January. I've now decided to simply refer to this as the midwinter feast of mass consumption. That way I don't offend anybody, hopefully. I'll offend somebody, I'm sure. But point is, if you get a midwinter feast card, and it's got something in it, like a $35 card to go downtown to one of the local shops and get something nice for yourself. Well, why did you get that? Well, you got that from somebody who is seeking business, who is seeking action from a government source. That's to say, you. And you're getting it because of your official position. You wouldn't be getting this if you weren't watching the kids. Why is this a problem? Now, a lot of people have gone, we don't get paid enough as it is. Well, if you don't get paid enough as it is, that's a problem that we should address through the systems that we have to increase that. You might want to contact the senators or the congressmen about that. But let's think about this. You have two children, Sally and Johnny. Sally's parents gave you that nice $35 card for the midwinter feast. Gee, that's nice. Oh, Johnny's parents, they didn't give you anything. Sally's parents are a couple of officers. Johnny's parents, well, his mom stays home and his dad is a private down in one of the units. What's going to be the next thing people are going to be thinking about? Well, usually it's disparity. That, I noticed that you watch Sally a little more closely than you watch my Johnny because you're getting extra money from those people. That's why we don't allow people to accept those kinds of gifts. Now, again, is it a gift? Well, if it meets the refreshment rule, it's not a gift. Plaques, things of those things. You pay something at fair market value, it's not a gift because you bought it. Now, second question is, do we have some way of getting around that rule? Is there an exception? Well, we have one which is really, really important. That's the $20, $50 rule. $20, $50 for the year, $20 per time. Well, we figure you won't sell your soul for $20. Although I would be careful because, again, this is the kind of situation where it can very, very easily, even small amounts of money can be perceived as causing the difference in the way you're treating other people. But, wait a minute, what if those two officers that are giving you that nice gift, they're not just clients of the daycare center. They're actually your brother and his wife. Or your sister and her husband. Or any other combinations that may now exist in the army of the New World. Well, okay. There are all sorts of situations where we may have family in the army, or maybe working over at Doyon, or working somebody else, where they would otherwise be a prohibited source. But if the reason you're getting the gift is based on the relationship, the personal relationship you have with that person, it's not a problem. It's only when there is. Now, can you get to a problem even with a relative? Yeah, if this is the brother who hasn't given you the time of day in the last 20 years, and you're right before a big test of new equipment that his company is bringing up here for testing. You know, they're a test center. Oh, and you're the guy who's going to be testing it. Could you make sure it passes? Okay, that could be problematic. Again, discounts. There are some exceptions for personnel who are E6 and below. Again, if you've got those kind of situations, that's a really good time to come talk to us. Final question, and the most important question, is will your acceptance of this gift undermine government integrity? Will people think that you're doing what you're doing, not because the government has you doing this, but because you're pocketing the money, you're feathering your own nest? If that's going to be what they're looking at, then yes, you've got a problem. Now, what can you do with a gift? Well, you can do the Nancy Reagan thing. We were talking before about references that people probably don't know anymore because I am getting so darn old. But no, you can just say no. You can refuse to take the item and just say no. Sometimes you can't. Well, sometimes you can pay for it. And again, sometimes you can't. Sometimes if it's a perishable thing, like a cake or cookies or something of that nature, well, you can either give it to charity or you can share it in the office. It then becomes not a gift to you, but a gift to the Army, which is just distributed around. Okay. Or you can destroy it. The only time I've known of anything where it was destroyed, there were two. One was a cake. Now, here's another practical rule for you. If your cake has green frosting and it's St. Patrick's Day, probably okay. If it's Valentine's Day and the frosting on top is red, but the underside is green, you may want to check, especially if it's been like a week or two since Valentine's Day. Yeah, we've had a case of that once. The only other time I don't know anybody destroyed a gift was the chaplains one time had to destroy a gift right after the very first part of the midwinter feast. They received all these costumes. Well, what are we going to do with these costumes? Well, they took the Jedi costumes and turned them into shepherds. And they took other costumes and turned them into other things. The one they couldn't figure out and decided it really wouldn't be good if anybody ever found out that they were the ones who gave it to, Value Village or something like that, were the French maid costumes, because they just couldn't figure out where the French maids would fit into the nativity story. Okay, that one I can see. Let's destroy that one. Now, sometimes you have a real problem. You can't get rid of it. I had a general officer, Air Force guy, who was had to go down on official business to Switzerland. Well, during his time there, his son and the son's wife come to visit, and so he managed to arrange to have them stay at the same hotel. Well, when he goes to pay his bill, Nein, you cannot pay for this. It's already been taken care of by the Swiss government. Uh-oh. Can I see your supervisor? Yeah, I can't do that because that's a personal expense. That's not something that the government is supposed to be paying for. Monsieur, because they speak both German and French down there in Switzerland. You cannot pay it. The Swiss government has already paid this. So what he did was did the right thing. First thing you do when you have a problem like this, come see an ethics counselor. He couldn't refuse the gift, and so he kind of accepted it. But what we did was we prepared a letter, sent it to the State Department because this was their problem, and said, here's the check for the amount. Your problem now. So, check never got cashed as far as I know, but we did the right thing. The important thing is to have proof that you did the right thing. All right, let's take a look at some scenarios. Okay, so you're going to an informational meeting hosted out downtown by somebody who is a private entity. Therefore, they are a prohibited source because they want to do business with us. They've got the treats out. They've got the nice little donuts and coffee from the Bubbly Brew or some other nice operation that maybe making coffee and such. Well, can you eat the coffee and drink the donuts? Wait a minute. Take that. Reverse it. Yes, for those of you who are Willy Wonka fans, yes. Yeah, you can eat that. It's not a meal, and we talked to you before about, yes, you can, those kind of things are not a problem. But now you get a meeting, and again, here where you have a contractor, or let's say it's a parent or somebody from the legal assistance office, and they want to go out to lunch and talk to you in a more informal setting. Well, can you do it? They're going to take you down to the oh, I forgot the name of the place now. The sandwich shop down there in the food court down over at the X. Okay, can you go? Can you enjoy the $15 lunch that they are providing for you? Well, remember we told you that there is the $50 rule. So theoretically, yes, you could do it. Now, should you do it? Especially when there are a lot of other people who know who you are and know who this other person is, and then you might have more problems. That's going back to that Rule 14 that we talked about before, where you might be able to do something, but if it looks bad and it smells bad, it is bad. So that's a problem there. Here's an absolute problem, where you're sitting there and you're now going on for your fourth visit. What does that violate? That violates that $50 side of the rule. So you don't want to cause that to become a problem for you. No, you can't pay down the bills. So you can't get it down to where you're going to get to that $50 mark. By golly, no matter what I have to do. No, not going to work. Now, another type of gift between employees. Obviously, the biggest thing here is gifts coming down, good. Gifts going up, not so good. Why? Okay. Suppose Colonel Zemp comes in and sees us and says, you guys have done such a good job keeping this place ethically good that I'm gonna bring in some pizzas and some soda and lunch is on me. Is that okay? Well, the answer is yes. It's perfectly acceptable. In fact, I had a boss in Germany, and we always knew April 15th, the next Friday, was going to be pizza time for the guys at the tax center because they worked really, really hard. And a lot of times they worked overtime. It's what you do when you're a green suitor. But, people loved him for it. Okay, you might just think, some people get very cynical and say, you really think I'm going to work more for you for a piece of cheap cheese pizza? Yeah, probably not, but it's not going to hurt anything. But if he can get an esprit de corps and get some more, people feeling together, that's a great thing. What's the bigger problem? Well, suppose you've got Jones here and Smith here. Jones gives the colonel a nice new $50 gift certificate. Smith doesn't give him anything. Somebody's got to go to Hawaii in February for a TDY. When we get, which was it? Smith was the one I think gave him the $50, and he goes. What is everybody going to think? Oh, it's a bribe. Yeah, that's what it would appear to be. It would look that way. So that's why going up, we don't allow people to give things. Going down, that's fine. But there are a couple of exceptions. Of course. Remember I told you I'm the two-handed lawyer. This is the other hand. Occasional basis does allow you to give gifts. Where you have a situation where the items are of little value, $10 or less, or is food shared in the office. Yeah, there were actually people who were all concerned that, you're sharing cookies. Yeah, Mrs. Fields, she charges for those cookies. Yeah, no, we're not going to go for that. Small hospitality things that you normally have. I don't know how many people have been to Germany or to Europe in general. Usually you bring something, and that's a tradition which we brought back from Europe as an army. So those kind of gifts, not a problem. Now, the other type is the special and infrequent occasion. Now, some of them are those personal events of great significance, like weddings and babies. Yeah, those are real nice. And the other part is when the boss is leaving. So when the general or the colonel or the sergeant major or the first sergeant leaves, yeah, we always gather up money together and we get them a nice gift. got some rules here. First is $300 is the limit. You can't give a gift of more than $300 to anybody in the military, not even the Secretary of the Army or the Secretary of Defense. That's where some people have got a problem. There was a secretary whose name shall forever be Cohen, not mentioned, and it was known as the Cohen Rule. And there was an exception made to allow him to accept more than the $300 gift. Yeah, we decided that's not going to happen anymore. $10 for each subordinate. Voluntary contributions only. Yeah, the person involved can't say, well, it's a $400 gift, so I'll give you $100 and you give me the $3. Yeah, not working. Okay, TDY is not an exceptional thing. Now, for some of us, it has been exceptional for us to go TDY. I went from 2010 to 2014 without getting one. So sometimes, but it's not a gift-giving occasion. Now, weddings, as I've told my children, all of whom I've married off in the last 5 or 6 years, yeah, all 3 of them are off, and they better not expect Daddy to be doing anything else for them, because, that's like a once in a lifetime sort of thing, I should hope. Giving a gift setting, yeah, the office could do that. That would be part of that exception for the occasions of personal significance. Wounded warriors get gifts because they're wounded, not just in the center. It's the warrior transition unit, not the wounded transition unit. They have certain because when the guys first came back in 2002, after 9/11, there were the first guys coming back from Afghanistan. There were actually people who were going, they're getting these things from these, like the Wounded Warriors Association, and they're getting like a backpack and shorts and a shirt and maybe some cookies and some toiletries. Yeah, that's because they were so stupid, they forgot to pack when they got themselves blown up. So, no, we decided retroactively, anybody from September 11th on, they could get it. Must be unsolicited. There is a waiver that can be gotten going through an ethics counselor. It can be up to, a whole bunches of money. If you've seen the Extreme Makeover show, yeah. They gave these guys, a couple of them, a few of them a house. Had the one with the guy with the mechanical chair, and he gets to stand up and salute his commander. Oh, cool stuff. That's gone through an area called PAO-LA. Now, I'll ask the PAO guys here, do you know what the LA stands for? That's right, Los Angeles. Because what's in Los Angeles? That's right, Hollywood. So all the times you see at the bottom of the screen as it's coming up, we'd like to thank the Department of the Army, the Department of the Air Force, Department of the Navy, whoever is involved in this. Yeah, they're the ones who do all these things. They're the ones who get the waiver for the bigger things. Family readiness groups are not fundraising groups. They were originally called family support groups and were private organizations at the time. So if you've got somebody who has been in longer than since 2005. Since 2005, they've been family readiness groups. Before that, they were family support groups. They're private organizations. Now they're a command-sponsored program of the Army, and therefore are official entities. That's why they can get support from the unit. They have limits on fundraising, though. $10,000 for the year and some other things. They create an informal fund in which to put that money can only be used by their own, raised from their members to support their members. Now, when we say that, we expand that slightly. It's within the military community. You don't have to actually be just the people in your little group, but the closer you can hold to that, the better. So it means that you are trying. So if you have an FRG, that there's an event, an MWR event, and if they allow for people to come in and sell food or other things from the FRGs, that's fine. They can do that, and they can gather the money from the entire post. It's still part of the same basket of money, so to speak. Private organizations, you've got to be very careful. This is a very, very good time to call the JAG office and get the ethics counselor to tell you whether or not what you're doing, because they're not federal entities, they have a whole bunch of different rules. That's a real good time to come and talk to us. So you have to be careful of conflicts of interest and all of that, because again, what's the big thing? That's right, they are not federal. But the most important thing to remember here is AR 21022. That outlines all of the principles, all the procedures for an private organization to come on post. Now, normally we're not looking to have most private organizations come on post. What kind of organizations might you be thinking about? Well, the Red Cross is one. They may seem to work hand in hand with us very closely, but they're a private organization. ASYMCA, again, works very closely with us. They're a private organization. So they are not on post unless we have that they meet the rules of 21022. Okay, some of the other organizations that might. Well, if you are a member of the 2-8, the Artillery Association of America is one. If you're an aviator, the Association of Army Aviators of America, or Quad A, is another. They have the right to be here. They can hold their meetings and do all their sorts of things because they are part of our greater organization. But then again, they're not. They're not officially part of the military, even though they have very many things that make them seem like they might be. Now, if we're talking official participation, some people can go to meetings in their official capacity, representing the DoD. If there's a seminar or something of that nature, and there's a legitimate government purpose for having an employee there, okay, then they can go in their official capacity. So, for example, if there's a meeting, about a fire, yeah, then somebody might be able to go in their official capacity, say the garrison commander. Of course, he should be singing Old Billy Joel songs, such as "We Didn't Start the Fire." But that's not the point. The point here is that, yeah, supervisors can permit DoD employees to go to such meetings. Now, we provide speakers to all sorts of organizations. Big thing here is there are 7 factors that have to be considered, and those are in the regulation. But the important thing is, got to be telling the Army story. If you're being asked to come and speak in your official capacity, you're telling the Army story. So, for example, 4th of July or Veterans Day, when the garrison commander or the deputy commanding officer may go down and talk at Memorial Park. Well, that's fine. Or maybe there's some other kind of meeting going on, and we need to get the Army story out. That's fine. But the point is, it's the Army story that's going out. Management's prohibited. We can't, as a part of your duties, manage a private organization unless you happen to be in a very special kind of position, and then you have to have the Secretary of the Army and the DoD General Counsel agree that that's a good idea. Yeah, it doesn't happen that often. Most of the time you're talking about things like, combined federal campaign. Now, liaison is a different thing. As long as you have a significant continuing interest in their organization, we can do that. Can't bind the Army to anything, but for example, the garrison commander. Garrison commander has always been somebody who has been a member of the school board. He doesn't actually sit on the school board. He is a liaison to the school board. Now, in our office right now, we do have a member of the school board who works in our office. She was duly elected and did so in her private capacity. She doesn't use government time. She doesn't use the government time to do her business. So that's fine. We'll talk about that in a bit. too. But the big thing here is that the garrison commander, when he goes down to the school board, he does not vote. He is only there to explain and to discuss with them the effects that their rulings might have on our children. Okay, so, yeah, obviously not a full-time position. Must be appointed. We'll probably have to go and get the new RD's signature on a letter saying that the garrison commander can do that kind of stuff. Again, we don't endorse anything or anybody in our official capacity except those happy few things which we can. Now, personal participation, you can be a member of a private organization all you want. It's fine. Why? Well, because that's a good thing. I mean, if you want to be a member of the Red Cross, that's cool. If you want to belong to a professional organization, that's great. There are many people at the hospital, in the law office, in the various parts of the combat arms that have these private or professional organizations that they belong to, and they're doing that in their private capacity. Again, private time, private dime. That's the big thing. Can't use your title, your position, or your organization name in connection with it. There's some, if there's a, there are some exceptional rules when you've got something to write. But, you know, Major Smith, U.S. Army, that's fine. Major John Smith, the battalion, the company commander of Charlie Company, is not going to be a good thing, because that would mean that he's using his official title. So, can you belong to the UAF Alumni Association? Well, you can. Well, of course, you have to be actually an alumnus of the UAF campus. But the other thing is, of course, not on your own time. Don't use your own number. Use your private cell phone number. Use your AKO or your Hotmail or whatever other accounts you have. Don't use your government account. Okay. Can he use his rank when making this request? So if the DCO wanted to make a request to use a piece of our, like the theater, could he put down there, you know, Deputy Commanding Officer? Well, no, because then he would be trying to influence it. That would be coercion. Coercion or inducement to do anything is not permitted. So you can't use your position to better your organization. Membership, yeah, not happening. Most people aren't going to get that offer anyway. Again, no solicitation. That's pretty much an easy thing to understand. Conflicts of interest. Well, you know, when does what you're doing outside conflict with what you're doing inside? Sometimes it's harder to tell. Sometimes you might want to stop to think about it, because if you belong to a professional organization, for example, you may be having interactions with your own place. For example, if I were a member of the Alaska Bar Association, I couldn't put in there that, you know, to call me at my local number here, or to give them my mail.mil account. I would have to give them my private accounts. Those kind of things would be required, and again, we can't be representing ourselves as the military spokesman. Widely attended gatherings. If you ever have a problem like that, that's one that's really, really important to come in and talk to us, because that would be an exceptional time. And here we're coming down to the wire, seeking employment. Now, these are the laws that I use to check when somebody comes in and says, look, I'm retiring, or I'm leaving the job and I want to go work for somebody else. Can I do it? Well, those laws tell me whether or not you can. On the other hand, it's kind of rare that we actually have to do this. I've only written a couple of dozen of them while I've been here, and most of them really weren't necessary. It just was for the benefit of the individual, make them feel better, or their company demanded that they have something like this, because they weren't actually dealing with contracts, and they weren't dealing with things that were important to the control of what was going on. So that's an easy thing. But if you do have any kind of thoughts that maybe there's some conflict, I'm the legal advisor here now. I'm going to be doing things with law folks downtown. Maybe there'll be a conflict of interest. Let me go talk to the ethics advisor to make sure. All kinds of things. Working at the veterinary clinic, and now you're going to go work for a veterinary person downtown. Yeah, maybe want to stop by and talk to us. Conclusion. It's real simple. What we are trying to do is to create a culture in the Army which says, am I going to do the right thing? And those questions that we have there really can kind of help you start to focus that, you're doing the best thing. Is this going to make us look better in the public eye? Will the public think, oh, we don't like that because we think you're cheating us. We think you're taking more money than you should be. Those kind of things cause people to wonder about us. We don't want that. We want people saying, those Army folks, the RD, and when she was leaving, I thought had a pretty good comment of, used to be that good enough for government work meant that it was a high standard. And that's really what we want to go back to. We don't want to go to the low standard of saying, ooh, it's good enough for government work because they're the shoddiest guys in town. Well, we want to hold that up, and we have been. If you look at race relations, if you look at gender relations, the Army has almost always been ahead of the rest of the pack. So we want to keep those kinds of things up. We want to make the Army the shining city on the hill, the example for which other people should be striving. Now, always remember to come talk to us first. As I say, I may be gone soon, but Tammy will still be there, and other people will be available, and we will also provide that information for you on the next slide. But this is the question slide.